This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is Loren Lester, the voice of Robin and Nightwing.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review.
Hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUReview.com.
And on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 300 of the DCAU Review. My goodness. Even though technically we've done way more than 300. I'm Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. And Cal, as we mark this momentous occasion of the 300th episode of the main show, we'll call it, on this podcast feed, we to celebrate that 300th episode, we thought we did something similar with 250. We picked a character spotlight that would be probably too big to do for just any regular episode, but for a big milestone like this, we're really pulling out the big guns for a character spotlight for episode 300.
That's right. I dare say, outside of, maybe Batman or Superman, and you and I have off the air discussed how we would even begin to tackle a quote unquote spotlight episode for characters who were literally the focal point of their own animated series. I don't know that we're going to get someone much bigger than the topic of today's episode, which, of course, if you clicked on the episode or if you're listening via the Pod Tower on YouTube, you already know via the thumbnail that this is, of course, the Character Spotlight Volume 1 of Robin the Boy Wonder. And today we're excited. We're going to talk, Liam, all about his first appearances in that first 65 episode run. So again, volume 1 of this, we're going to talk about some of his action figures and toys. We'll talk about Loren Lester, who of course provided the unforgettable voice of the character. We'll talk a little bit even about some musical moments that are worth discussing, all here in volume 1. But we're not going to be able to tackle everything. Oh, I even forgot to mention we're going to tackle some tie-in comics too from the Batman Adventures run too. So we got a lot to cover here, and I dare say that this might be one of our longest and most in-depth spotlights to date. But really, I don't know of too many characters that would warrant something as much as Robin the Boy Wonder, based solely on his the history of the character and honestly what he ends up meaning to this entire series. So lots of stuff, lots of fun stuff to tackle today as we dive in to our Robin Spotlight episode.
That's right. So we won't waste much time. But before we get into the spotlight for Robin, we're going to just go ahead and remind you that this episode is brought to you by the Pod Tower YouTube channel. Cal already mentioned it, but you can head to youtube.com/the Pod Tower right now, and you'll not only get every episode that we put up as the DCAU Review, main episodes and bonus episodes of our entire catalog, but as well as the entire catalogs of Tim Talk and the currently ongoing Jump on the Bat-Wagon podcast, as well as a new long-form interview series that the Watchtower Database boys are just kicked off recently. So a lot of great stuff up on youtube.com/the Pod Tower. So go ahead and check that out and subscribe. It helps all of us out. And with that bit of a promotion out of the way, Cal, well, as we always do, we do a little bit of background. Again, we don't have as much time to faff around because of how much stuff in the main DCAU there is to talk about with Dick Grayson, aka Robin. But we will just mention, obviously, his first appearance, a legendary first appearance, the Detective Comics number 38, created by Bill Finger, the writer, Bob Kane, the artist, along with Jerry Robinson, who did the interior art, I believe, on that issue, all three credited as his creator. It's so funny, I think, because based on live action interpretations of Batman, Robin has been kind of underserved to the public, I think, based on, Batman appears in Detective Comics 27 for the first time, and less than 12 issues later, Robin is making his debut. So he is, Dick Grayson is as much a founding father of DC Comics as the Dark Knight himself in many ways.
Yeah, and of course, maybe most famously, his live action media persona took off in the Batman '66 run,
Hmm.
portrayed by the legendary actor Burt Ward. But outside of that, and of course, two mixed reviewed performances by Chris O'Donnell in Batman
Right.
Forever and Batman and Robin. We have
Hmm.
not had a live action Robin on the big screen, at least. Since then, we did, of course, get I think several versions of Robin in the live action Titans show.
Hmm.
But yeah, he's really disrespected, I dare say, on some level or another. And I think some of it as we get into talking about how Batman the Animated Series handles the character is
Hmm.
because how the original character was portrayed and brought into the comics is difficult or has been difficult for writers to decide how they're going to translate that to adult movies, or
Hmm.
movies that are geared towards an adult audience. How do you take seriously a movie with a grim and gritty Batman with a 13 or 14-year-old running around, whether he's wearing pixie boots and short tights or the more modern uh, uniform. It's still difficult to try and understand why a grown adult man would put a child in harm's way on a nightly basis to fight crime. It's understandable that would be a little bit difficult to try and translate. But I think as we get into how Batman the Animated Series decided to portray him as a college-aged sidekick that was doing this more part-time, that would come home for holidays or on college break and participate in adventures. It still did what the character was supposed to do, which was allow younger viewers, to see themselves as a character in the show. So
Hmm.
it allows them to relate to the show in a way that they can see themselves as the character standing alongside Batman. I think there's some interviews on a recent featurette you can check out on our friend the World's Finest YouTube. It's called what's it called? Rob
Robin Rising, I believe is
Rising.
the
That's
name.
right. Robin Rising. Yeah, check that out on World's Finest. A great resource for all things DCAU and friend of the show. But yeah, they really talk about the decision there. Paul Dini and Eric Radomski and Boyd Kirkland, even friend of the show, Kevin Altieri, discuss alongside Bruce Timm their decision to how they wanted to portray Robin in a different light, seeing as how this was still a kid's show, but they didn't want him to be a kid in harm's way. So they still allowed kids and people, young adults to watch it and see themselves as that character working alongside Batman, but didn't make him the same sort of goofy iteration of just zany one-liners that or gee gosh holy whatever Batman that the Burt Ward character was.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's what we'll be delving into today. I will just mention you did somehow forget to mention the very memorable Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Some people occasionally call him Robin, as we found out at the end of that of the third Chris Nolan Christian Bale Batman film. So
Also, I guess if we're including all live action versions, it would be the 1940 serials. Also, there was
oh
a
yeah,
Robin,
very true.
Robin on that with a giant mask, just covered it from like forehead
Hmm.
to nose. Just a standard party mask he was wearing there. But yeah, there certainly have been some. I just don't think that live action nailing the more modern take on that Robin. I don't know that you could say that it's been properly executed from my perspective, at least in live action. So we're still waiting. Perhaps the new James Gunn verse will fulfill that, or hey, who knows? Maybe Matt Reeves will take up the challenge as he seems to perhaps be game for.
Absolutely, would love to see it. But for today, we'll be focusing, of course, on the DCAU version of Dick Grayson, and we'll jump into his on-screen appearances first. And that kicked off in the second episode ever produced, although it aired much later, as was often the case with these early episodes. They did not necessarily air in the order they were produced. But the second episode of the series technically is, of course, the all-time holiday classic, Christmas with the Joker, which I feel like you and I couldn't possibly discuss Christmas with the Joker more than we already have. We've talked about this episode 1,000 times, so we don't need to go into great detail there. But of course, Batman and Robin on Christmas Eve going after the Joker, as he, he's got tanks and flying Christmas trees and bombs and vats of acid and a train bomb and all kinds of craziness. And Robin's here. It's obviously an all-time classic episode. Robin's kind of just there to give a few quips.
And make Batman watch It's a Wonderful Life.
That's true. There is kind of a nice little like team bonding experience at the end of that episode as Dick and Bruce finally sit down for their Christmas goose and watch It's a Wonderful Life. So it's a classic. We both, of course, watch it probably every December at some point, and it's an all-time favorite, even if it's just horrifically animated episode by
I was going to
Acom,
say,
as most Acom episodes were.
Yeah, it suffers from the Acom Animation company's issue, and we reviewed that on. Of course, we review Batman episodes in production order, so it was on our second episode of the podcast. We also did a re-review-ish sort of live commentary Christmas time a few years later. So we've reviewed it a couple of times and probably talked about it. We talked about it on the Joker Spotlight episode. We've covered it enough. Yeah, we don't need to go into it. But as you said, I think the feature of Robin on the episode, it is an interesting introduction to the character. As he does mention, he's on break from college, so it does set up that this Robin is older. He's not the young boy that Bruce rescued from the circus that's running around at age 13 or 14 and aiding Batman in fighting crime. He's a little bit older. He's a little bit more sarcastic and wisecracking still, but just maybe a little bit more mature, and makes a little bit more sense why he's out there fighting alongside Batman as opposed to a 12-year-old who's being put in harm's way.
Absolutely. And it was several episodes later, but right near the end of that I think that first DVD box set I always think of is how I plan these out. But it was an hour later on, an hour run as well. We of course reviewed Robin's next appearance, which was in the episode Fear of Victory, which is a somewhat legendary episode on our show because we went in kind of expecting a pretty strong outing, and it was quite dreadful.
It's in the bad episode jar. It gets talked about. And that doesn't have anything to do with Robin. It's actually, I think, I dare say, and maybe it's because we're doing an episode on Robin, so I'm biased, but I think the premise of Robin being affected by fear gas or fear toxin and it affecting his performance as a superhero is interesting. But everything around him in that story is just not anything that you or I liked. It's a ridiculous plot as Scarecrow is, betting on sports games and influencing them by, affecting the athletes with fear toxin and then gambling to get more money. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But there is a classic scene that ended up making it into the Adventures of Batman and Robin intro for the opening credit scene where Robin does a swing to catch the vial of fear toxin before it drops over top of a football game, which would have caused an enormous outbreak in the fear toxin and likely a lot of deaths. And that sequence will always be near and dear to me just because it's in that opening credit sequence. So there are some interesting Robin things, some visuals that are interesting, but yeah, it's overall let down by a very ridiculous plot.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely an interesting idea. They're actually doing something as of the time of recording sort of similar to this in the modern Nightwing comics of Dick Grayson sort of developing an unshakable fear of heights, which of course robs him of his ability to swing and flip around the town as he's used to. So it's yeah, I don't think it's a bad concept, but the execution left a lot to be desired. Though again, that's more on what our villain is doing and why than it is anything to do with Robin in that episode.
Yeah, if you want to hear why we didn't like it, check out episode 38 of the podcast. That's it's one to remember by just how absolutely flabbergasted we were over
absolutely
expectations versus reality.
He needed money to buy chemicals.
So
moving
he could affect people with chemicals.
Right. He needed more money for his experiments because he needed the chemicals for his experiments. So seems like kind of so he used his fear toxin to so that he could get more money to make more fear toxin. It's kind of a snake eating its own tail. But there you go. That was the plot. Moving on, there was a few episodes later, we saw a Robin pop up sort of in a dream sequence in the episode Dreams in Darkness, another Scarecrow themed episode, funny enough. This one with Batman being infected with fear toxin and trapped in Arkham Asylum. Batman ends up going underneath into the city's reservoir, this cave system, to try and stop this fear toxin from spreading into the city's entire water supply. And while he's there, he sees visions of all of his villains, and as well as Alfred and Robin at one point. So a minor appearance, but a very memorable sequence. And we also get a name check, though he doesn't appear in the classic episode Perchance to Dream, but not much to write home there. But moving on to really this is one of the big ones we gotta talk about here. It's episode was an all-time classic episode, another one of those VHS Warner Home Videos that we had and watched over and over, and that would be the absolute classic two-parter, Robin's Reckoning, the DCAU edition, the Batman the Animated Series edition of that classic Robin origin story of his parents dying in the circus when he's a child, and Bruce Wayne taking him in while attempting to track down his parents' killer, and ultimately not being able to do so, but in the process sort of beginning to let Dick into his world and bond with him over their mutually shared grief. We see all of these wonderful flashback sequences, which are then juxtaposed with the present day, where Batman is kind of once again attempting to sideline Dick while he tries to go after Zuko by himself. So it's this really interesting story where we see sort of the wonderful beginnings of their partnership, their kinship, and at the same time we're seeing it start to fracture in the present day. It's an all-time classic for a reason, but that's an all-timer, and it gives us so much insight into how Robin views himself and how he is beginning to grow into his own man at this part. And so some of the pat lines and excuses Batman would give him to take him, to bench him, to take him off the case in the past are not really flying with him anymore. He's not really willing to just take orders and stand at attention waiting for Batman to tell him it's okay. He's kind of decided to strike out on his own this time.
You deceived me. You can't take this one. Zuko's mine.
Sorry, Robin, but on this team, I call the shots.
But I've waited half my life.
Batman out.
Oh, no. He's not gonna ace me out.
Please, Master Dick, you must do as he says.
Not this time, Alfred. Maybe not ever again.
Yeah, I can't believe you didn't say it's the untold story of Robin, the secrets of his past, and how he came to be.
Well, I know you like to say that, so I was just waiting. I was just giving you the office, as they say.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Yes, of course, that's the descriptor from our favorite commercial for the Warner Brothers home video version of the Robin tape. So yeah, it is an all-time classic. We watched it back on episode 80 of the podcast. Check that out in the archives. We loved it. There's so much about the episode that's done really, really well, from how they handle the death of the Flying Graysons, the musical cues that are done for that entire episode, the conversation between a young Bruce Wayne and a young Dick Grayson about pain and hurt, and I've got chills now thinking about Kevin Conroy's performance in that episode. Yeah. But I think the final sequence where he finally gets the opportunity to seek revenge on Zuko, and it appears that he's kind of going to give in, and then Batman's able to kind of snap him out of it, and he doesn't go over that line and kill Zuko. That the culmination of that episode, everything about it, from Loren Lester's performance as Robin to the music, the visuals that lift heavily from some pretty famous Eastern animation, and even Kevin Conroy's performance at the very end there. Everything about it is so good. And it's it's tough. Like, if you think about it, they really were not supposed to be showing death or children being placed in danger. Yeah. And that those two episodes have a lot of both of those in them, between the death of the Graysons and then a young Dick trying to run around and find his parents' killer. There's a lot of that happens. So the fact that they were still able to tell a really, really effective, interesting, dynamic story that maybe isn't as famous as the story of Bruce Wayne's parents being killed, but you could probably, get a 60 or 70% positive response on how many people would know the story of Dick Grayson and the Flying Graysons. Like, it's pretty well established that people know what happens. So to be able to tell that story that many people know, and to do it in an effective way that doesn't rob or dumb down, or the parents don't just fall and get hurt. Like, there's death, his parents actually die, and there's grief, and all of that is handled and written so beautifully. Two really, really great all-timer episodes. In preparation for this, I'm just thinking, like, man, I got to go back and watch that episode again. It's just, yeah, even just watching some of the clips from the episode are just awesome. That final scene, I revisited that. It's well worth it. It's one of those episodes that you look back on and, like, man, that's a home run, and one that you would put on the, you would be in the running for a Mount Rushmore consideration for a best of for the series. So yeah. I've talked a lot about this episode for good reason, but yeah, it's a great one, and one of the ultimate tales of that Robin, and he gets to star in most of it, like you said. So
yeah, it's his story from the flashbacks to the present day, and it's funny. I was reading up. There's various commentary tracks and different interviews people have talked about. Bruce Timm talked about like weeping openly during the sequence when they were getting the animation back for the sequence where his parents are killed. Again, you don't see it, but you just hear you see the shadow of his mother reaching out for his father's hands in the air, and then sort of it's complete silence, and then the rope just hangs down, and this incredibly shrill sound from the music kicks back in, and you hear all the gasps from the crowd. It's so it's almost more powerful because you don't see it. Yeah. It's an incredible episode, and yeah, just we'll talk about it a little bit more because we'll touch on our voice actor a little bit later. But yeah, that episode is just such a home run and such a great bit, and it's also a building block for the larger direction of where this character goes. Obviously, we won't be covering Nightwing and the new Batman Adventures in this episode, in this volume 1, but this episode of the fracture between them, and and the feeling that he's kind of outgrowing the red and green tights at this point in his life is kind of starting to surface. Even though they do kind of patch things up by the end here, it's clear that there's still some some lingering tension between them that will bubble over several episodes down the line. Moving on from there, our next time we saw Robin in action was the episode Night of the Ninja. He's certainly not the star of that episode. It's a more personal tale of Bruce Wayne meeting up with an old rival of his from when he was going around the world training in various fighting forms. And this one student that he can never best is back, and now he's besting Batman as well and sabotaging Bruce Wayne's various companies, and even manages to kidnap Bruce Wayne with Summer Gleason in tow, thus ensuring that Bruce is unable to actually properly fight back due to that. So Robin's goal here is to kind of as he puts it, save Batman's bacon at one point when he's first encountering this mysterious ninja for the first time, and then later on in the episode his role is kind of just to kind of play keep away, keep the ninja distracted, and then ultimately find a way to cover it up, knowing that this has to be Bruce's fight. This is it's very much the tale of the samurai versus the ninja, as we get into with the Kyodaiken ninja character. But so ensuring that Bruce can fight with honor, he heroically knocks a big tarp over Summer Gleason's head so that Bruce can kick butt. It's a fun episode. He's definitely a supporting character in that one, but again, it does give him a little bit of more to do than just crack wise and beat up some random thugs. He's a very active part of that episode.
Yeah, he doesn't quite best the ninja, but he certainly holds his own against him, and who's clearly a formidable foe for Bruce himself. So, you get to see that he's more than just the sidekick that always needs to be rescued. He gets to stand alongside Bruce, and yeah, it's not his episode, as you said, but there are plenty of memorable wisecracking lines that he gets, but he also is a man of action as well, and works alongside Bruce and making sure that Bruce is able to fight at his best, as you mentioned in that final sequence. So if you want to check out our review of that episode, it appeared on episode 82 of the podcast. So definitely check that one out if you want to hear our thoughts on that one.
How does he do that?
Oh,
You okay?
I'm fine. Come on. There's nothing more to do here.
Thanks for saving my bacon, Robin. Hey, no problemo, Batman.
Absolutely. And a little further down the line, we saw him in action, albeit briefly, in the episode The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne, another classic episode. Bruce's identity is in danger of being discovered. We do see him very briefly at the beginning. He picks Batman up from work in the bat plane, and then most of the episode happens, and then at the end we need a stand-in so that Bruce Wayne and Batman can be in the same place at the same time. So with the aid of a very convincing mask, some stilts, and apparently Superman's ability for precise muscle control that allows him to perfectly replicate anyone's voice, he manages to provide a pretty convincing stand-in to fool the villains and even Hugo Strange himself, who has seemingly figured out the true identity of Batman. So it's not much there, but that sequence is fun with him on the stilts when they do the Mission Impossible reveal and the mask comes off to explain how exactly Bruce Wayne and Batman were in the same place at the same time. It's a fun little sequence.
Yeah, plus he's got a pretty good ear, I heard, too, on top of it. But, episode 91, if you want to check that one out. It is worth mentioning only because of that really hilarious sequence where he reveals the stilts also, which I didn't think that the size difference was that comparable based on, what we've seen, but I guess it would be foolish to show up with his former best friend Harvey Dent / Two-Face there in attendance, and suddenly he's lost 6 to 7 inches off of his height. So a very memorable episode, albeit not because of much that Robin did, but that final sequence is certainly worth a mention because it is pretty fun.
Not bad, huh? Maybe I'll shuck this crime-fighting gig and try Hollywood. I wish you weren't so tall, though. Walking in these leg extension braces is a pain.
Where to now, Master Bruce?
Home, Alfred. I've had enough vacation to last me a long time.
Absolutely. And when next we saw the Boy Wonder in action, it was, of course, a classic episode. We just did a Riddler-themed review last week, and it was Riddler's first appearance. Was Robin's next time showing up in Batman the Animated Series. Of course, the classic episode, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? A very fun plot for that episode, with the Riddler being a video game designer who is wrongfully terminated and fired, and not given credit for this new game he's produced that has made the company millions. No modern parallels in any industry to talk about there, but yes, as it happens, Robin is actually quite valuable because he's played the video game a lot, even on the back computer when he's supposed to be perhaps looking into the case. He's actually very valuable because, of course, Batman and Robin find themselves in a full-size real version of the Minotaur's maze, and so Robin ends up being quite a bit of help in helping Batman navigate that maze to save the not quite villainous but not quite innocent Mr. Mockridge, who is the victim of the Riddler's ire in that episode.
Yeah, that's an episode that, if I recall, which, by the way, you can check out our review and you can correct us if I'm wrong, but that's episode 93 of the podcast. Mm-hmm. But that's a memorable episode because of the sequences, of course, everything that happens when they go into the real life maze of the Minotaur. It did suffer for some animation issues from my recollection. Didn't love the animation for that.
It's a Studio Junio joint. And
yeah. There's
not great.
Not great for a bunch of reasons. So, but it is memorable because, of course, not only do you get a lot of memorable sequences of them running around, I think for us, it's extremely memorable because it was then also duplicated for the Adventures of Batman and Robin Super Nintendo game. So you feature the same exact puzzles and things. So a lot of memorable sequences, and Robin kind of is the one that guides them through the maze for the majority of it because he's so familiar with the video game. So he does get to drive it a lot, although ultimately at the end, when he believes that they're out of time and that there's no way out, Batman has to kind of decide to hack the hand of fate to get to the end game there and save Mockridge. But it's a memorable episode for a lot of reasons, maybe let down a little bit by some of the animation, to the best of my recollection. But lots of good Robin in that episode, working alongside Batman and being the sidekick that we all needed for that episode.
We've got to use one of these keys.
Yes, but which one? And why are they labeled A, C, and D?
Don't look at me.
Let's try D.
Look out! Try another one.
Okay. A this time.
No, wait! Turn that key and there'll be 3 blades.
But how do you...
It's the C key. Trust me. It's a musical puzzle. The key of D has 2 sharps. The key of A has 3.
But the key of C has no sharps.
Absolutely. I really shepherded Batman through the the adventure. Robin and Batman's palm top computer, of course, also very important in how we solve the riddles in that episode. But yes, then we're moving on to, we do get a brief name check again in Almost Got Him, absolute classic. I think it's in the Joker talk show segment,
Mm-hmm.
but not really much to go on there. The next time we saw him in action, another Riddler episode. What is reality? We poked a little bit
Or
of fun
video
at this
games.
last week. Yes, it's another video game. This time it's like a magic virtual reality world, but it also has like the Freddy Krueger Dream World rules, where if you die in it, you die for real. So Robin is sort of the man on the outside. He's the guy in the chair, so to speak, here to sort of coach Batman through this magical VR video game world as he attempts to free Commissioner Gordon, who has gotten himself caught. This is a tough episode for Robin, because everything that happens in that episode is his fault. He sets up the machine, he connects it to the internet, he leaves Commissioner Gordon alone with the headset, and goes to get a snack or something, and then he decides the way to solve it is to try to just pull the headset off his head, and so he gets electrocuted and knocked out. So yeah, not a great outing. He's still young, college students still make a lot of mistakes. This was a bad day at the office for Robin.
Yes, his hubris and his penchant for running in without thinking gets the best of him several times, as you mentioned. But who could fault him? His brain's not fully developed yet, and he's going up against a super genius. So time will tell if he can match wits with the Riddler later on. But yes, this episode 133. I think all three of the Riddler episodes, as we talked about with last week's review of Riddler's Reform, all three of them, the whole Riddler trilogy, are memorable for very different reasons. That is certainly a memorable episode because of where it takes place and the fantastical nature of Batman playing inside a video game world.
Also, I was say also immortalized. They do the maze and a little bit of the what is reality world in the SNES game.
That's right. I was gonna say it definitely is in the Genesis game, but it's absolutely in the SNES game too. I forgot about that. So yeah, you do get to the giant chessboard, and Batman becomes a knight, and it's all very trippy, and there's a lot of it that is memorable. Unfortunately, Robin ends up being the doofus in a lot of the scenes. But check out our review of that one, episode 133 of the pod, if you want to hear our full breakdown.
Absolutely, and his next appearance would be just one episode later in an all-time classic, that being I Am the Knight. Of course, Commissioner Gordon, injured in the line of duty, seems touch and go if he's even going to survive. Batman already kind of having a crisis of conscience over whether or not he's doing any good by putting the mask on, is driven sort of even further into isolation and depression by Gordon's injury. Decides he's going to hang up the cape and cowl altogether, seemingly. And it's as small as the appearance is here by Dick Grayson. It's really Dick Grayson. He does try to suit up as Robin briefly, but it's such a great scene because there's a lot of scenes of Alfred trying to pull Bruce out of this, and he just can't do it for whatever reason. And it's Dick who ultimately makes the case for why he has to get back out there, and what as he says, the most important rule of crime fighting was.
Yeah, it's obviously it's one of the more heart-wrenching, deeper character studies for several of the characters, mostly Batman. Obviously, it talks about why he does what he does, and how the potential loss of Commissioner Gordon doesn't rule out all of the good that he's done. But he obviously is very much struggling with that concept. So for Dick to show up and to try and rally the troops and talk about all of the good that he's done, and how him not being there in time or being able to stop the commissioner from potentially dying doesn't invalidate all of the good that he's done for the city, in the name of honoring his parents and all of that. And it is interesting because you do get that different dynamic where I think if this was a younger Dick, it would be weird for a child to be sort of encouraging an adult to like, hey, come on, get back up on your horse. It would definitely be perceived differently. But here, since they're almost peers, or basically peers, because Dick's an adult at this point, he's really trying to empathize. He's trying to sympathize with Bruce, and really trying to point out that, this one horrible, potentially deadly mistake shouldn't cause him to quit. One failure doesn't define the Batman, essentially.
Absolutely.
And he play like he between he and Alfred, they step in to try and really shake him loose of the fact that he can and still is doing good, and needs to recognize that. It's a great character study for Batman. Obviously, Dick plays not a huge role, but does have an important role, as we mentioned. That episode is covered on episode 134 of the pods.
You've got to pull yourself out of this, Bruce. The Jazz Man broke out of Stonegate. He's gone to ground somewhere in Gotham. You know he'll find a way to get to Gordon. Okay, then I'm going after him. You taught me everything I know about crime fighting, Bruce, but the most important lesson was to never give up.
No, Dick. This is my hunt.
It's an all-time great.
Absolutely. And I also love that there is a moment there where Bruce is just kind of ignoring him when he's sitting in the study when they're having sort of their second conversation. And there is that moment where Dick really thinks he's not going out. He's not going to put the cowl back on. And he says, well, fine, I'll do it. Like, he is. And again, it just shows how he is stepping out from the shadow of Batman. He's ready to be his own hero, and a Gotham, Robin, Dick Grayson is a hero, whether or not Batman's by his side or not. And if Batman's not able to do it, well, Gotham's still got me, and I'm going to do it. And obviously that's enough to sort of shake that commitment to this mission, this never-ending battle, to borrow another superhero's catchphrase, is Dick's commitment, still having that fervent commitment to that mission is enough to finally shake the cobwebs off of Bruce and get him back into action. So yeah, it's a very minor role, but it's a great way of, I think, utilizing him in a very unique way. And from there, his next appearance he's in this episode a lot. It's not a particularly interesting episode. The Mechanic, an episode where what if Penguin got a remote control that controlled the Batmobile? No, it's a fun little episode. We get a little bit we kind of get a little bit of an answer to the age-old question of where does he get those wonderful toys? In this case, specifically his how the Batmobile, the secrets of the Batmobile's past and how it came to be. And see, we each get one. But yes, we find this story of this mechanic and his daughter, who has sort of secretly been working for Batman to develop his vehicles for years now. And the Penguin is somehow able to notice this through an accountant at one of the companies that builds the parts that the Batmobile needs. Brings it to his attention. The Penguin springs into action and blackmails Harold, the mechanic. So Batman and Robin off for the ride. They're seemingly in a lot of trouble. Robin does save the day at the end, as it looks like the Penguin is ready to pull his umbrella gun on Harold and his daughter, but Robin comes flying in on a glider and kicks him. So there's a little bit of heroics from Robin. It's a fun concept episode. I don't remember loving it when we went back to review it, but it's a fun enough concept for an episode, I guess.
Yeah, it takes some stuff that you saw in Batman Returns, which is interesting, with the Penguin controlling the Batmobile, and it does involve a minor character that you never see again, never hear or see from again, that's supposedly the mastermind behind this impressive vehicle of Batman's. But yeah, so that's episode 178 of the pod. I would not have even remembered that Robin, other than like when they're riding in the Batmobile and realizing that it's being remote controlled. I don't think that I don't think I would have remembered that Robin was in the episode. So swinging it on a glider is maybe his most notable.
Yeah. The only really memorable moment in that episode is when Batman does the Kembe Mutombo finger wag at the end. That's
true. Yeah.
That's really the only memorable moments of that episode. But,
good point.
We did get a very memorable Robin featuring episode a couple of episodes later, that being the all-time classic two-parter Shadow of the Bat, parts 1 and 2. Of course, that episode introduces Batgirl, Batman, of course, going deep undercover as matches Malone to try to figure out who's setting up Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Gordon's been arrested, and Robin seemingly going to fill in and make a public appearance to support Commissioner Gordon at a rally in his honor, is interrupted by none other than the debuting Batgirl, who of course first puts on the suit to pretend to be Batman, complete with shoulder pads and no red hair sticking out. Hey, that's a funny in-universe thing, that like this iconic thing of like the Batgirl cow with the frock of red hair sticking out the back. That happens because Robin just happens to grab her cowl in a weird way. That's to try to unmask her.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't even know if we talked about that when we reviewed it, but that is a pretty fun little notation there. Yeah, that was back on episode 180 of the pod, so check that out. Yeah, that's a memorable episode. Batman and Robin go face to face with Two-Face, and it's certainly more Batgirl's episode than anything, because you're introducing and establishing Batgirl as a legitimate character. But there's lots of Robin one-liners, and obviously Batman is in disguise as Matches Malone for a period of time, so he's not he's sort of out of commission when he gets captured by Two-Face. So you do get Robin and Batgirl teaming up, and then of course a very memorable sequence of Batman and Robin in the subway car that's filling up with water, and there's a lot in that sequence that's memorable, with them working together, and ultimately with Batman and Robin teaming up at the end, but then Batgirl out on her own to save the day as on the boat headed towards the Statue of Liberty at the very end. So, or Statue of Justice, I think it turns out to be, but it's maybe it was meant to be the Statue of Liberty. But either way, certainly more Batgirl's memorable appearance there. But there's some witty back and forth between Robin and Batgirl that occurs.
They have like a buddy cop thing. Like
he's trying to big league her. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He's he's mansplaining crime fighting to her quite a bit in that episode.
You again? Listen, under other circumstances, this could be fun, but I've got a job to do.
Don't flatter yourself.
Well, I don't have time to babysit amateurs, okay?
I may not have a diploma from crime fighting school, but I can do fine on my own, thanks.
What are you doing here anyway?
Same as you. We both suspect Mason of...
Mason here. You want to meet? Okay, where?
What's he saying? Shh. Dork.
South Gotham subway, the Old River entrance, in 1 hour. Right. I'm on my way.
Well, show's over. You can run along home now.
Okay.
Okay?
If you won't let me help you, what else can I do?
Good. You've got some sense after all.
Nice guy, but a few bats short of a belfry.
It's good. Yeah, well, he's a little bit, he's sort of the personification of misogyny a little bit. You know, he can't believe a woman.
I mean, right. In his defense, he is right that she's a bit of an amateur, but obviously without knowing that she's actually Barbara Gordon at this point somehow. He's a little unsure of why she's even taking an interest in this case with the commissioner, and why she won't just leave it to him and to Batman. But yeah, it's a really memorable and fun episode, though not really a starring role for Robin. Not like the final episode we'll talk about. The final two episodes that Robin appeared in the first 65 episodes, what's considered the first season of Batman the Animated Series. That being another banger, all-time classic two-parter, that being The Demon's Quest parts 1 and 2. My goodness, this one, Robin's very central to this, in that he's the damsel in distress, so to speak, in part 1. Seemingly him and of course Talia, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, have been kidnapped, leaving Batman to have to team up with Ra's al Ghul and go on a globe-spanning adventure to all of these different exotic locales. Really gets our heroes out of the city and to some really unique locations, culminating with the reveal of the Lazarus Pit and all of that. And then really in part 2 is where Robin gets to be a little bit more active in the episode after he's been freed. Him and Batman have to run and escape. Another very memorable moment of them avoiding an avalanche by jumping off of a cliff. The final shot of the Adventures of Batman and Robin opening sequence. Yeah, that episode's a lot of fun. Robin ends up a little bit sidelined. And by the end of part 2, he's kind of like, he's the pilot. He stays with the plane while Batman goes to try to confront Batman's off having shirtless sword fights and doing all this cool stuff. And Robin's like standing next to him while he's looking at the computer and he's flying the plane. So he doesn't get a lot to do, like I said, but he is kind of the inciting incident. Very memorable sequence. We get like a cold open to this episode before the title card, where he's coming back from a night of crime fighting to his dorm room, and we just see this mysterious figure in the demon mask. And before he can react, he's knocked unconscious. Some really memorable Robin like iconography and visuals in this episode, with the action that he and Batman are involved in when they're dealing with Raish's henchmen at the start of part 2. So he's not completely helpless in this episode, but it's not really his episode. But he is kind of the linchpin of the entire plot, is that this mysterious kidnapper has taken both him and Talia, who of course turns out to be all a plot by Ra's himself, of course.
That's right. We checked that one out 100 episodes ago, Liam, on episode 200. So definitely check that one out. Of course, directed by friend of the show, Kevin Altieri. A legendary episode. I don't think it would be a mischaracterization to say that this was a Robin-centric episode. However, it would not be that. It would not have the same gravitas if it did not have Robin as the kidnapped motivation for Batman to work with Ra's, who claims that Talia was also kidnapped by the same person. So it was quote unquote kidnapped by the same person. It was all ruse by Ra's, of course. So a very legendary, memorable episode, great story. Robin, as you mentioned, maybe doesn't get much of the spotlight for the second part, but he does get a little bit a part of a little of the action for the end of the first episode, and then the beginning of the second episode. So memorable, has some good dialogue, obviously, and is certainly Batman's motivation there. So clearly designed to show that Batman, despite them being peers, Batman is a little bit more superior when it comes to fighting. A friend of the show, Kevin Altieri, talks about it each and every time we have him on, I believe, and Robin is featured. But Robin's dirty fighting style is featured. Fighting off, helping Batman fight off some of the goons. But it's a great episode for a lot of reasons. Robin's just sort of, I think, the featured parts with Robin would probably just be the dessert to a very good meal, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. He's the hors d'oeuvre to
there you go,
say the least. But yes, so that wraps up our first season of episodes. Before we move on to some of the merchandise and comic tie-in appearances, before we wrap up here, we will just mention a few things. Obviously, we don't really we always talk about music on these. A lot of the characters have their own unique themes. I don't really know of any theme that you would identify as the Dick Grayson Robin theme. I think the closest thing you get is there's kind of a refrain that's played a lot through the end of part 1 and the second part of Robin's Reckoning. That score was by Carlos Rodriguez. That's probably the most like memorable music moments of featuring Robin in these first 65 episodes is that one. There's obviously a lot of episodes he features in that have great music, but as far as an episode centered around him, I feel like it's that one, because you do have that theme that comes in when he's confronting Zuko at the end of part 2, and also when he's sort of informing Alfred that the partnership may be over forever at the end of part 1. They're kind of they're bringing in this theme, and the way that's used and played in this very serious tone to undercut how, just his rage and fury and finally getting his hands on Zuko after all these years. That's a tremendous piece of music by Mr. Rodriguez, and leads to some very memorable moments across those two parts for again, maybe the most important episode of episodes of this Dick Grayson character's entire run here so far.
No, I agree. That episode, everything about that episode, as we talked about the first part where we see the death of Robin's parents, and culminating with that incredible sequence at the very end. Those would be the moments that kind of stand out to me as far as pivotal Robin musical sequences. Him busting through that the giant billboard on the motorcycle and then speeding off to catch Tony, drag him across the end of the dock, and then doing the Akira slide that he does on the bike across the sliding to a stop there. There's it's incredibly memorable, and that it would be very, very different, I think, without the music. Like, the music is just ingrained in my head up until the point even when you think he might kill him. It's done really, really well.
Sorry, boys. You pays your money and you takes your chances.
You're through, Zuko. Forever.
Is that so, birdie boy? Huh?
I've waited a long time.
Keep away from me!
To your point, though, a lot of Robin sequences, because he wasn't really granted a whole lot of solo episodes or episodes where he wasn't really involved, or only involved by himself. Either the sequences feature sort of the villain theme, as it does in Fear of Victory or Shadow of the Bat. You get Batgirl's very memorable theme played throughout the sequence with him and Batgirl meeting for the first time. So he's sort of the victim of who he's kind of teamed with in the scenes, having their own dynamic, very memorable themes for themselves. So, of course, later on, Volume 2 of a Dick Grayson Spotlight, that's certainly redeemed once we get to the new Batman Adventures, when he gets his own very memorable, strong theme as Nightwing. But that's another story for another time.
Absolutely. Can't wait to get to those episodes down the road. But the other thing, of course, to mention, we already touched on him briefly, but of course we have to talk about the great Loren Lester as the voice of Dick Grayson and Robin. And we've talked about this a lot. I feel like, especially in those earlier episodes, a lot of them, he doesn't have a lot to do besides just be making quips. And and obviously they wanted him to add a little bit of levity, which is, as we talked about, that's kind of what Robin is designed to do as a character. So it's not his fault, but I think it makes you appreciate those episodes like Robin's Reckoning, like I Am the Night, even like the Demon's Quest to an extent, where you get to see Loren Lester, who is, by the way, he's on Broadway right now as we record this. He's doing quite well for himself. Obviously, a very accomplished actor in his own right. You like seeing him get to stretch his legs, especially when he gets to play off Kevin Conroy in those episodes, and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. as well, and all these great characters. Melissa Gilbert as Batgirl. We talked about the kind of the back and forth, anything you can do, I can do better thing that they kind of have going on in that first Batgirl episode. Like, I think those are the ones where it feels like, okay, he's got something to actually sink his teeth into here, where you can really appreciate Mr. Lester's performances a little bit more.
No, absolutely. He's obviously a very fantastic voice actor, easily identifiable as Robin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a voice that will be synonymous with Robin forever, probably. Obviously, he's had a long storied sort of a character actor career in live action. He's done, at least according to his Wikipedia, he's done over 200 episodes of like live action series. So he's done stuff outside of it. He's done voice acting outside of it. He's done other Batman stuff and Batman projects. And so he doesn't always, I think the material, and we've certainly covered this, especially early on. I think maybe Christmas with a Joker is probably exhibit A that I would use, where they didn't quite know how to write dialogue for him, or they weren't quite ready to write him as a more serious character because Batman is so serious. So you kind of needed some levity to it because it is a children's cartoon. And as we talked about at the beginning, the writers and directors wanted him to be somewhat identifiable for children. So for him to be the comedic relief, for him to have the quips, for him to be a little bit goofy and lighthearted compared to this very dark Batman, you have to give him some lighter dialogue. It does, I think, affect maybe how those earlier episodes and appearances may be perceived, because he doesn't get as much serious acting. And as I just mentioned, his character shifts and changes for the new Batman adventures when he becomes Nightwing. So you get to see a little bit more of that kind of serious, darker, more like Batman type of personification. So it's not just quips that are written for him. But I think there are episodes, as you mentioned, the I Am the Night is a perfect example of that, outside of course, Robin's Reckoning, where he gets to really stretch his legs and really kind of give some good dialogue that isn't just a witty, quippy, haha, I just punched the bad guy in the groin, quip. But he does play. I mean, he clearly is not out of his league when it comes to who he has to act with. Obviously, he has, interactions with Mark Hamill's Joker and John Glover's Riddler and, Bob Hastings' Commissioner Gordon throughout the entire series, amongst others. And it doesn't ever feel like he's on a lower level than those actors or actresses. So I think that speaks. It was a good casting that perhaps suffered from maybe a lack of good dialogue in some of those earlier episodes. But when really asked and called upon to show the depth of his ability to act, I think of that end of Robin's Reckoning Part 1, where he's talking to Alfred, and he says, I'm not going to listen to Batman, who tells him to stay in the cave. He says, I'm not going to listen to him now and maybe never again. And he pushes the visor down and speeds off. And Alfred's just kind of standing there watching him. It's done in, like, he delivers that with such depth and such he's not angry about it, but you can tell, like, this might be it. Like, you can feel the authenticity in the delivery he gives. So yeah, he is an actor that was cast at another home run. And when it comes to our voice casting from the great Andrea Romano.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite sequences in that episode, and credit to, of course, Mr. Lester, and also to the voice actor for young Dick Grayson in that episode, Joey Simran was his name, is his name. He's still alive. Um, uh, is that the way they cut? I mean, it's one of the most beautiful emotional scenes in the entire series, which is when Bruce goes into the room with young Dick and they look at the photo or the painting of Bruce's parents. You know, it might be, if you put a gun to my head, I don't know why anyone would do this, but if you put a gun to my head and tell me what's Kevin Conroy's best single scene performance, I think it's that.
It's good.
And young Mr. Simran held his own, and that scene where they speak about grief and the feeling that you could have done something, this horrific thing happened to you. You were a child, and you feel Bruce working through. You begin to see what Dick Grayson, what Robin will bring to Batman and Bruce Wayne in that scene.
Hey, Dick. How you doing?
Fine.
Sorry I haven't been around. I forget how big and lonely this place can be.
That's okay.
As it turns out, I may have some free time starting tomorrow. How'd you like to catch the Gotham Knights season opener? Box seats.
Great.
I know it must be very difficult.
If only I could have stopped him. I saw him coming out of the tent. I knew he didn't belong there.
I know. You keep thinking, if only I'd done something differently. If only I could have warned them. But there isn't anything you could have done. There isn't anything either of us could have done.
Your mom and dad? Does the hurt ever go away?
I wish I could say yes. But it will get better in time. For you. That I promise.
And it's a lot of it is, of course, the late great Kevin Conroy's performance, but it's a lot of young Mr. Simmers. And then that scene ends, of course, this very emotional scene. We see, Bruce and young Dick embracing in this hug, this sort of the orphan hug that they have in that episode. And then it immediately cuts from that to Loren Lester, adult Dick Grayson, screaming at Batman, "You deceived me." He's so betrayed. Like the way they use the flashbacks with the younger voice actor, Mr. Simran, to enhance Loren Lester's performance in that episode is so spectacular. And the way it's cut together, and again, that's a credit to the animators and the director of the episode, Dick Sebastian. Everything about that is great, but the two Dick Grayson voice actors interposed with each other, and the difference, the softness and the warmth in Kevin Conroy's voice as Bruce Wayne, connecting with this young kid, to now in the future when he has in some ways betrayed him by lying to him, by not keeping him in the loop, by not explaining his actions. Just incredible. We probably owe Robin. We probably did that early enough in the show that we owe Robin's Reckoning a full re-review someday down the line. But because I could talk about that episode forever. Great performances all around. Even Fear of Victory, one more dollar in the bad episode jar. Like we said, even though the plot itself is a little bit silly on the Scarecrow side of it, I think Mr. Lester does some good work in that episode, kind of exploring the idea of this complete risk taker, high flyer. He grew up on a trapeze, and now he's scared to get on a footstool. I think he does some good work there. So that will wrap up our on-screen portion of this character spotlight. But of course, Cal, we're not anywhere close to done yet, because we also need to look at some of the tie-in comics and merchandise. We're going to start with merch. And there is, as one might expect for a character as popular and toyetic as Robin is, we have so many. There's just a treasure trove of Kenner Robin figures, some very, very silly, but all very almost all of them hold a very special place in the heart of, I think, anyone that was playing and collecting with those toys at the time.
Of course, yeah. As we mentioned at the top, you're a 6 to 12-year-old boy and you're getting toys. You get a Robin figure and you're like, man, I am Robin. Like, this is who I am. I get to be this character. So, and because there were much fewer Robin figures than there were Batman figures, you could collect like all of them. You could I have a Robin collection like we did when we were growing up. So, yeah, we'll go through briefly. Obviously, as you mentioned, I think we would be here for days covering every single piece of Robin merchandise from Batman the Animated Series. There was just so much Batman the Animated Series merchandise that was done that it would be hard and continues to this day to be done, that it would be difficult to nail down. So I stuck with the original Kenner stuff to start, and this is just going to be stuff that's on the Batman the Animated Series carding, not the Adventures of Batman and Robin or the new Batman Adventures or anything else down the line. But it all starts with Robin with turbo glider and drop missiles. So this was the original Robin figure that I believe, my memory of this figure, I got Combat Belt Batman and this Robin at the same time for some birthday, probably birthday in 1993 or something like that. The most interesting and notable thing about this Robin figure is that the body of the figure is not based on an animated series design. Kenner instead borrowed the Robin body from the Batman Returns line, which is its own story as to why there's a Batman Returns Robin figure in that line. A very interesting one that is not for our discussion here today, but essentially it's got sculpted on abs and these shoulder pikes and a lot more details than the actual Robin uniform would have. It's much more resembles what you would see the Tim Drake costume at that time than it was representative of what you saw on screen. However, it was a Robin figure. It came with a cloth cape with a yellow liner. It looked enough like the Robin that you saw on the screen that it fit its bill. And hey, it came with a turbo glider that could drop missiles on your Penguin figure or whatever. So
yeah,
very interesting figure to say the least.
Yeah, I think they did eventually in the new Batman Adventures kind of make a glider that resembled the one they used in the show. But like the gliders that we got in this Kenner line, just fascinating. But
like
I do
a parasailing glider or something.
Yeah, like he's hanging on. I guess maybe there's like some logic of like, well, he's a trapeze artist, so he's kind of hanging down from it rather than it being like a backpack on him. But yeah,
you're giving way too much credit to the people.
I agree, probably am. But yes, that is that does hold a pretty special place in my heart. It is, as you said, a little bit of a mishmash. I do also love that original one. Also, like in the show, we didn't really necessarily mention this as a visual thing that is synonymous with this Robin. But they gave him like a very bluish color on the green parts of his suit, which is actually show accurate because many of the episodes were produced through Warner Brothers Animation, of course, and the color palette they had is basically all the Warner Brothers cartoons had the same color palette. So they were dealing with they had the main green color, but his highlight color, so to speak, they didn't have like a darker green to use, or at least it wasn't plentiful enough. And rather than use like a dark, a black or a dark gray or something, for whatever reason, they decided to use this very bluish gray. So there's a lot of episodes of the series where Robin's the sleeves and the gloves and the pants look blue, and this figure kind of captures that, and it's something that I keep begging McFarlane to do with one of these endless repaints of the Batman the Animated Series DC Direct sets they're doing. Give me a mostly bluish, a Robin's egg blue Robin figure, please.
Put it in the notes, Todd McFarlane. You heard it here first.
Come on, Todd.
Give us the Tiny Toons highlighted Robin, please.
I'm begging you for another re-release of the original B-Test series, for gosh sakes. But yeah, that's a very iconic figure, even though it does have kind of as you said, a shared history with another Kenner Batman line.
We'll keep this one bookmarked because Turbo Glider Robin, which was just called Robin, by the way, it was just called Robin, and then underneath of it said with Turbo Glider, not Glider Robin. This is called Robin. Very important distinction. This figure, interestingly, also later on, a Gentle Giant who does these really, really interesting sort of enlarged versions of your childhood toys. They have an entire 12-inch line of Star Wars toys on these giant cards. They also did a series of Batman, the animated series. I believe there's a Batman, Robin, and Joker. And that Robin was immortalized in 12-inch form also with the same sort of details and as that Tim Drake Robin. So very interesting piece there. It's on a really cool card that sort of resembles the original Kenner line. So not very cheap these days. I think the Kenner Robin, surprisingly, is way more affordable if you're looking to grab one for a collection. But moving on, one of our favorites, Liam, one that actually I think way more resembled the Robin that we saw on the show somehow, was Ninja Robin with chopping arm action and ninja weapons! ! This was interesting. It definitely had far less detail and was a little more bulky than the original Robin release because it was an original body designed to look a little bit more like the show. However, he had the red and green suit, and then on top of it, he had sculpted ninja armor. He had a removable ninja mask, which was pretty cool because it kind of resembled his motorcycle helmet, so you could pretend like he was getting off the motorcycle or something. However, his trademark spiky hair, because to be able to fit the ninja mask on top of him, was smoothed down, so it kind of looks like Robin got caught in the rain or thrown in the bathtub or something.
Yeah, we did an episode a couple of Black Fridays ago, I think, where we picked some of our the weirdest, funniest Kenner Batman figures, and this was on my list because yes, he has a very wide torso. And then he has this weird flat haircut. And so I believe I dubbed it something like midlife crisis Robin. He looks overweight and also like he hasn't bothered to do his hair for a while. Like this is like Robin's second wife just left him, and he's really having he's really having a tough go of it. He's having a tough go of it. So I have always loved Ninja Robin as midlife crisis Robin, but it is a pretty iconic figure. When you get all the accessories and the ninja mask and the cape and everything on him, it doesn't look so bad. But it's a very memorable figure, and one that if you were like us and were occasionally going into secondhand stores, apparently every kid in America had a Ninja Robin because I feel like we had 8 of them somehow, and most of them coming from thrift stores and other places that we would find a few extra toys for our toy boxes at the time.
Those were the first to go when moms were cutting their kids' toys, apparently. By the way, that Robin would also be repainted and re-released in a 2-pack later on in the series as a Ninja Power Pack. It was a Ninja Power Pack. It was a Batman repaint and a Robin repaint. They are in black and gold, of course, the signature colors of ninjas, black and gold, with some red highlights. It's the same figure, same squeeze the arm. He does a karate chop action. And I think the only difference is that he has a Japanese symbol painted on his belt. So that actually, I have that mint on card. It is a part of my collection because it is it's a unique one. I like having a Batman and Robin 2-pack. It's the only Batman and Robin 2-pack in the entire run somehow. So
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. When you think about it nowadays, the way that toy companies just use and reuse and re-release the same figures over and over again, it would seem that back then you would have gotten that, but that wasn't the strategy. Continuing on, after the Ninja Robin, we also of course had you can't have a Bruce Wayne figure without a Dick Grayson figure, and one of the most memorable probably toy gimmicks of the late 80s and early 90s was the 2-in-1 figure. So you get a Batman that you take his mask off, his armor. Sure, it looks a little goofy. It doesn't quite fit right. It's a little bit oversized. But hey, you can take the mask off and Bruce Wayne is underneath of it. They mastered that very early on in the original Batman 89 run, and it just kind of kept going. And they did their darndest to try and do it with Robin with, I would say, not great results, because it's you always got to do something funky with these 2-in-1 toys, because they have to match up in some way, like where it kind of looks like the actual suit that they wear, but also it's you end up taking all the uniform off and you can't just change the colors of the clothes. So he's wearing like a skin tight compression shirt, a black compression shirt with the initials DG in the corner on his chest pocket, and then he's wearing green, like knit Robin green pants with these little short black booties, and he's of course wearing black gloves also, because Robin wears gloves. You can't take gloves on and off on a figure for interchangeable hands. And then the in order to get the shirt to be red, they had like a snap-on chest piece, but they also connected the mask to the chest piece, and the mask was made of rubber, and it never laid flat on his face right. Not the best execution looking back at it, but at the time it was kind of cool to be able to have a Robin figure that transformed into Dick Grayson. Now you could have Bruce and Dick and hanging out together in the Batcave or in Wayne Manor or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's tough because it's like his sleeves are green and his pants are green, but you can't have him in a green shirt and green pants and green gloves, because then he's in like this weird onesie outfit.
Yeah.
When he's not in the Robin suit, so like it couldn't quite work. Like on one of the Bruce Wayne versions, they did like a gray undershirt, so you could kind of match that up with the bat suit if you want to put him in the suit. So they didn't quite, I guess they couldn't quite figure out how to do that with the Dick Grayson figure. But yes, it's another example, I think, of us as kids just loving the show. It was, like you said, just cool to have a Dick Grayson figure. The extra accessories were like, put in a baggie or thrown into a little box of some kind and forgotten about pretty quickly, but it was still cool to have a Dick Grayson figure to go along with the Bruce Wayne.
There you go. All right, Liam, the aforementioned, as we mentioned, the original Robin was just called Robin with Turbo Glider, but then later on, we'd have a very confusing release of a figure called Glider Robin. But get this, he didn't come with a glider. He came with a winged jetpack and firing claw. Why would you not? I think this is a branding issue here. You should have named the first one Glider Robin. This one should have been Jetpack Robin or something. Or this Glider Robin should have come with a glider and you put the jetpack with the original figure. I don't know. Somebody messed up here. This one is interesting. Interestingly, it's sort of like a foreshadowing of what would come to be, because he's got like almost a full red suit with black gloves and black boots. And then he's got like these, so it kind of looks like the TNBA Tim Drake outfit, but then on top of it, he's got this weird like silver highlights that almost makes it look like a spacesuit or something like that, which of course you're selling toys. It has to look different than what you would see, it has to be eye-catching for children and for adults to grab for their kids. So I guess this is okay. I think our brother had this one. It's the only thing I remember is collapsing the wings of the jetpack into the jetpack and just pressing the release button over and over and over again. I don't remember this one being too memorable. It is a different body style. I guess that's the good thing. We finally get a unique body style for Robin here that's not a shared Batman Returns body, but at the same time, it also still doesn't look like what you saw on TV.
Yeah, cool color palette on that one. I like the silver and red suit, but not a home run of a figure otherwise.
Yeah. Moving on, Liam, another one that we had, and I think is probably, I dare say, maybe your most played with Robin figure of all time. That was although maybe the one after this would be, but Bola Trap Robin. This was like Pittsburgh Steelers colors or Pittsburgh Penguins or Pittsburgh Pirates, black and yellow. Wiz Khalifa would have loved this figure. Robin, he's got like black gloves and yellow shoulders and black yellow pants and black boots. A very interesting color choice, but it came with this really fun thing to play with that went on his arm that had these 3 batarangs, and you spun the end of it and it spun the bola around. It's I don't know if it was a trap, But Bullet Trap Robin with whirling battle blades certainly was a fun one to remember.
Yeah, they're trying, like I said, it's supposed to be a bola, but instead of like the little balls, they're all batarangs. But it looks like he has what is essentially some sort of medieval like decapitation device that he's but yeah, I got a lot of it's funny because I just talked about, not needing really the accessories, just wanting the figure with one of our previous entries here. But that one I could have just, because it was a little knob that you spun to make the bola thing with the batarang spin. I played with just that for hours, like trying to see how fast you could get it to go, and
pretty much a fidget spinner before that was a thing.
Absolutely, 100% ahead of its time there. But fun figure, even if the color palette and the weird little, like, he has like thigh pads that are like quilted on that figure. Some of the design choices were a little odd, but that one holds a special place in my heart, and all the same.
Yeah, and then rounding out our Kenner Batman the Animated Series Robin figures, Liam, what happens when crime gets this big?
Well, you need the squad.
That's right. The Batman Crime Squad. It's right. They very famous in our household for the commercial that also was on those Warner Brothers. You know what? Roll the commercial. We're the commercial.
When crime gets this big, you need the squad, the Batman Crime Squad. Batman and Robin with rapid deploy techno capes. Plan Strike Batman puts the hook on the evil Bane, but Bane is strong as steel. Racing in comes Ski Blast Robin to stagger the beast. Now the squad takes to the air in the triple attack jet. Robin launches the attack drone, revealing Air Assault Batman, who causes Bane serious pain. When crime gets this big, you need the squad. The Batman Crime Squad with rapid deploy techno capes. Figures and triple attack jet each sold separately. These and other incredible Batman toys are available at a store near you.
All right, so because of that commercial that played at the beginning of every Warner Brothers home video that we owned for the Adventures of Batman and Robin cartoons, we love this figure. I think you may have also gotten a lot of use out of this one too, just for sheer access. And I think we had two of these. We had one, and our brother had one. And
this is another thing of like having siblings that also play with the same toys you play with. Mm-hmm. Being the youngest brother, some of the toys there weren't that many that were specifically mine, so there was a lot of like
hand me downs.
4, 5, 6-year-old Liam, but also like if they were yours or our oldest brothers, I had to ask to play with them. Whereas Ski Blast Robin was mine.
There you go.
So that was like that one and the Bullet Trap Robin we just talked about. I think that's one of the reasons it was like these ones were specifically, a Christmas present for me or a birthday present or whatever. So I feel like these are the ones I got the most use out of. And also because like in the commercial, I loved folding the skis up. I didn't really see the point in having him actually ski, but I liked having like the weird like stingers on his back to I guess stab people with. I don't know. Seems a little violent for
stagger
Batman
the
and Robin.
Right? You have to stagger the beast. It was sort of Crime Squad is sort of like Transformers meets Batman because you get a little transforming device that comes with them. So Ski Blast Robin, legendary in our household to say the least. Rounding things up here, Liam, a couple things. We would be remiss not to mention probably a toy that I dare say, just for sheer access, 90% of American kids likely had, and that was the McDonald's Happy Meal toy of Robin from the 1992-1993 Batman the Animated Series Happy Meal releases. That's Robin on a motorcycle. And although you don't get much playability out of it, it was great because you could rev it back and make it pop a wheelie. And it was just fun to play with. Maybe not with your figures, but it was just fun to play around with. So you can still find these for probably $2 in a local comic book store or, on eBay. But it's just an all-time great incarnation of Robin. He looks cool. The bike was never, of course, on the show, and it sort of resembles something you would see in Batman 66 more than anything. But what a cool toy.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. And again, you try to get as much open space on the floor of your living room as you can find, pushing tables and stuff out of the way, chairs, just pull it back and see how far you can get it to go in a straight line. I feel like it always kind of curved a little bit when it went, and it's getting stuck under couches and and our radiators and whatever in the house. So always a toy that was on the floor, could be found on the floor, I think, specifically of our house, seemingly at any time, because we had so many of them, and we're again, just a thing to do when you're bored on a random weekday or whatever.
There you go. Also worth mentioning some more modern stuff. Diamond Select Gallery PVC statue. This is interesting. We don't usually cover too many statues unless there's sort of limited stuff. But I liked this one because it actually sort of depicts a very important and memorable moment in the Robin's Reckoning episode, and that's where he's standing up on the metal beam and he's got his bola or whatever that thing is that he spins around and he throws, which was also, of course, immortalized in the opening to The Adventures of Batman and Robin too. So it's a very cool, statue to have. It's PVC. It was probably like $35-$40. I don't know what it runs nowadays, but it's cool because it depicts that moment in that very memorable scene. I don't own it. It's not part of my collection, but when I was looking at them, I was like, that's really, really cool. I like that they picked a specific memorable moment from the show and kind of depicted it there in PVC plastic form. So worth mentioning there. Of course, Funko Pops. Everybody has a Funko Pop. Batman the Animated Series is no exception. There's two different versions of a Robin. Interestingly enough, sort of the standard Robin, and then there's a blacklight version. I don't know who. I didn't know blacklights came back into vogue. Maybe it's for a very specific person that is into black lights, or if you have a cool setup in your room, you turn on your black light and stuff glows. But the black light Robin variant for the Funko Pop number 153, I also don't understand how the numbering system works, but Funko Pops, I don't think you're supposed to think too much about Funko Pops. Just buy product. Yeah. And then last but not least, Liam, released on multiple occasions, probably 5, 6, 7, 8 times now, the DC Direct, DC Collectibles, McFarlane, Batman the Animated Series Robin figure, which has been done. It's came in single releases. It came in a 2-pack with the Batmobile. It came in a 2-pack with the Bat Signal. It came in, I think they did a re-release for, I don't know if the one for Batman The Adventures Continue ever got released or if that got canceled. Most recently, coming with a piece of the Condiment King when Todd McFarlane decided to re-release the BTAS figures. This one is really, really good, except for the fact that he's just too darn short. They made him maybe 1.5 foot smaller than Batman, and we talked about he did need stilts to impersonate Bruce Wayne. True. So he is shorter than him, but he kind of comes up to Batman's nipples on the figure, and it's just he's just a little bit too short for my liking. Otherwise, it's a really cool figure. It comes with a couple different capes, at least the original one did. One that's kind of draped over his shoulder, one that's a little more slick back. Comes with that bola thing, spinny bola thing. He's got he's got the grappling gun, he's got batarangs. It looks true to form. It just is he's just a little fella, that's all.
Yeah, that's always that's the one hang up is if you're like we just talked about, if you just have a Robin shelf, he's perfect. It looks like he walked right out of the show. But unfortunately, if you're posing him next to your Batman or some of your other figures, he's just a little bit out of scale with where he should be. But yeah, still a home run of a figure. We did an entire bonus episode back in the day, part of our DC Directrospective, talking about all those DC collectibles, DC's Direct, Batman the Animated Series figures. Definitely one to check out in the archives if you're newer to the show. But Cal, we got just one category left to wrap up our mammoth character spotlight here. Shoo. And it's of course tie-in comics. Now, since we're only doing episodes that fall under the Batman the Animated Series banner, we're only going to talk about Robin's few appearances in the Batman Adventures tie-in comic. We'll cover the subsequent Batman and Robin adventures, relevant issues down the line in a future volume of a Dick Grayson Robin character spotlight. But a few issues worth talking about with the Batman Adventures run. Batman Adventures 4 and 5, written by the great Martin Pasco, who of course worked on Mask of the Phantasm, and drawn by Brad Rader, who also worked as a character designer and storyboard artist on the show. Really memorable two-parter. Again, another Scarecrow. They, for whatever reason, they're always putting Robin and Scarecrow together. But Robin and Batman, I think Scarecrow makes it so people can't read in that episode in those issues. If my memory serves me,
certain people, yeah, it's like they're exposed to a certain chemical, and I think Robin is the one that's exposed to it. It's oddly similar to the Fear of Victory one, in that Robin is the one that's affected by the particular gas. But yeah, the covers are much more memorable and to me than the actual story, because I couldn't tell you what really happens outside of I think it's called the illiteracy bug. This is what they're calling it. And it's apparently emitted from a gadget hidden inside certain doctored electronics. So, boy, that's an interesting direction to go in. But yeah, the covers are absolutely memorable and iconic. So, at least to us. So, It's certainly an interesting story. It's a two-parter. I love that. It goes over 2 parts. So you get a cliffhanger at the end of number 4, and that leads into number 5. And I think maybe number 5 it has the more memorable cover for me, but both are very interesting.
Absolutely. And then his next big appearance, maybe one of my most read issues of Batman Adventures, especially as a kid, being such a big Robin fan, that would be Batman Adventures number 14. That was of course written by Kelly Puckett, with art by the late great Mike Parabeck and Rick Burchett. And man, this is a fun one. Bruce is out of town. The Scarface and the ventriloquist are on the loose, and it's up to Robin and a little bit of help from Alfred to keep track. It's just fun because, again, he didn't appear a lot, and we've sung the praises quite a bit on this show of the great Mike Parabeck, who did so many issues of this Batman Adventure series. Really fun seeing him draw Robin, even though for some reason his mask doesn't connect on a lot of Mr. Parabeck's art.
Very strange. Yeah, that was something that always bugged me. It always bugged me because there's so many of these covers where that happens. It's a very odd choice. I wonder if who's the inker? Is he? I guess Mr. Burchett was the inker. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was just an inking issue, if it was a choice, if it was. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think so as a kid, I remember loving the art so much that I would get tracing paper and trace the artwork out of the books. And this is one that I remember tracing over and over and over again. That iconic shot of him kicking the goon in the face with with the gun going off and the dynamite in the background. I think this is also interesting because don't they give Scarface the classic, well, not the classic because it was only a couple years old at this point, but the weird like speech impediment that he had in the
all his B's or G's, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I remember seeing that and like I don't understand why that's his personification in the comic, but it makes sense now obviously as an adult. But yeah, interestingly, it's a fun episode to remember. I mean, a fun issue to remember. I think the artwork probably stands out as the most memorable thing again for most of these for me, but definitely worth going back and checking out.
Absolutely. And then finally on our list here is another very memorable one, Batman Adventures number 18, same creative team of Mr. Puckett, along with Mr. Parabeck and Burchett on art. This one is, I think, very memorable because, if I'm not mistaken, the image of this cover, Mike Parabeck drawn of Robin and Batgirl sort of standing with a spotlight over top of them. There was a cake that we had for a birthday celebration of yours one year that I believe had this. This was like a joint birthday party with our sister and other brother. You and 2 of our other siblings all have August birthdays. So you were kind of sharing if I'm not mistaken. And this was the shared cake was a Robin Batgirl cake. Am I remembering that right?
And our poor grandmother who just got lumped in with us also, and just ate the cake, didn't care what was on the cake. She acquiesced to us choosing the design every year. But yeah, it was, I think, our poor sister also, who every year was forced to get some sort of like superhero or something design put on the cake, but she was a good sport about it for the most part. But yeah, this that is immediately what I think of is this image being transposed into cake form. Once again, the mask not meeting on the front is what always draws my eye. But yeah, it's interesting because you get a little bit of Batman or Robin and Batgirl teaming up again, which sort of follows up. I don't think it's directly referenced to their team up in Shadow of the Bat, but it sort of follows that same thread of them working together, and obviously the potential budding romance between Dick and Barbara. So yeah, we like this issue. We like the cover even more.
Absolutely, and I was mistaken. We have one more, that being Batman: The Adventures number 26, with interestingly has the word family. Batman over the word adventures is like spray painted the word family. And it's another Robin Batgirl team up issue. This one's fun. It's like a Barbara Gordon's like criminology professor is turns out to be not such a great guy, and Batgirl and Robin are on the case trying to solve things. Again, it's just a fun little team up. Again, these bonus tales that we got, another Puckett, Parabeck, and Burchett joint here. But that's a great one, and then we have one more here, that being, of course, another one that was constantly being pulled out of its little protective plastic sheet by myself, and that's Batman Adventures number 31, and that one has a very memorable cover, and also a very memorable character that we never really got to see in the animated series. A very modern character at that point, the character of Anarchy. Was used here, where Bruce Wayne is at some sort of charity gala and which is taken over, and everyone is being held hostage by this Anarchy character who wants to destroy the rich. Again, no modern parallels to that, but yeah, it's a fun tale. Once again, Robin sort of being forced to act on his own. Bruce, of course, not really able to help without exposing his secret identity. So it's all down to Robin having to catch up with this Anarchy character in time to stop the bomb from going off. But again, as fun as the issue itself is and the interior art is, I think what I again always think of is this tremendous cover by Mike Parabeck, where it's Robin sort of on the ground, seemingly at the mercy of Anarchy, who's pointing his staff at him, and then in the background we just see Bruce Wayne with like 10 sticks of dynamite strapped to his chest. It's such a great cover by Mr. Parabeck. But another fun solo outing. So that's something that these Batman Adventures issues did. When they did feature Robin, they really featured him. We talked about how many episodes of the show sometimes he's there to just to bounce dialogue off of, or to throw in some quips. But I think they took that sort of the same adage that the creators of the show were going for at the time, which is that when we use them, we want it to mean something. So and they as just sort of laid out here, a lot of memorable appearances from Robin in that original Batman Adventures run.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. By the way, a fun trivia note: Glenn Murakami was the colorist on that Anarchy issue. So very recognizable, monumental name.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we always talk about, that's sort of the fun of these character spotlights. In addition to getting to revisit some episodes that we covered very early on in the show, it also gives us a chance to look back at the toys and the comic books. And obviously, we're big fans of all those tie-in comics, so it's fun to be able to put a little spotlight back on some of the side stories that were being told at the time in this universe. So great deal of fun here. As we begin to wrap it up, lots still yet to be written, so to speak. Well, actually, it all has been written and aired, but we haven't covered it yet. There's still a lot more appearances of Dick Grayson. I think we've got at least 2 more volumes to cover. Probably going to need to cover the rest of Dick Grayson / Robin / eventually Nightwing, especially with all the comics and toys that Nightwing character got later on. So. definitely more to come here, but hopefully this lives up to the hype of a 300th episode extravaganza. Cal, this has been a lot of fun. And before we wrap up, we'll just say thank you, everybody, for listening, whether you do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or as mentioned, on the youtube.com/thepodtower. A great free way to support us is just to subscribe to us on whatever listening app you prefer. If that app also lets you give us like a star rating, give us 5 stars. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review. And as we've talked about, if you leave us a 5-star review, we will read it on the air and even send you a little gift. So a little, we're not above bribery here. And there's also some great free ways, other free ways to help support the pod. Would of course be to follow us on our social media at DCAU Review on Instagram and Twitter and Threads, believe it or not, once in a while. And you can interact with us there. These kind of episodes, again, especially when we get into the toys and comics, we always get a lot of good feedback of people who are commiserating with us and remembering their own play habits with these Kenner toys, especially as kids. So always look forward to hearing from people on there. If you'd like to support us more directly monetarily, there is a donate button where you can become a monthly supporter of us, where you can support us directly. We have a few folks who do that, incredibly kind people that help us out each month. And you could also visit our store. Links for that will be in the description here. So however you choose to support us, we appreciate you. And Cal, I guess we got to start thinking about what 350 is going to be. We're setting up a pattern here of these big character spotlights. So we've got 50 episodes to figure out what the next giant character spotlight's going to be.
I think the Sewer King is definitely in the running.
So we would have the episode, and he appears in one panel of Batman TMNT Adventures, I believe. I think that's...
Don't think too hard about it. It would be the quickest.
Oh, no.
It would be the easiest, quickest episode we've ever recorded. Folks wouldn't know what to do.
That's true. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to. Apple AdSense wouldn't be able to place enough ads in it. But
maybe we can get it to line up on April 1st, 2024. Right? if we use a little bit of math.
If that's a possibility, we'll just keep that in the back of your mind.
That's right.
That's something to keep in. But yes, it's been a blast. These first 300 plus episodes, as mentioned, we got like 50 some bonus episodes as well. But very excited here. And Cal, I guess we got to look forward to what we're doing next week. And if I'm not mistaken, that will be yet another episode, of course, of Batman the Animated Series, picking up where we left off after this 1 week detour.
That's right, Liam. We will be back next week, of course, with our 301st episode, picking up where we have left off in the production run of Batman the Animated Series with a review of another memorable one. They're all memorable. Let's be honest. They're all memorable except for Zeta Project. They're all
except the mechanic.
That's that too. It is, of course, going to be Second Chance, which, of course, features Two-Face. We have a lot of Batman's villains trying to go reformed here. An interesting turn of events. See what happens when this attempt to put Two-Face under the knife in order to remove the Two-Face persona is interrupted, and just who is behind it. Which of Two-Face's enemies is behind it, and Batman does a little investigating to find out just who it is. We're gonna find out ourselves next week. Can't wait to check that one out with you.
Absolutely, it's going to be a blast. An episode I have not seen in several years, but one I treasured quite a bit growing up. Excited to see how it holds up under a more critical eye. But that's next week. So until then, I'm Liam.
And I'm Cal.
And we'll talk to you soon on another episode of the DCAU Review.
Happy 300, everyone.